Hey guys, this is Eric Young, and you're listening to Booking the Territory.
This is the one-man gang. You're listening to Booking the Territory Pro Wrestling Podcast.
This is Booking the Territory, a pro wrestling podcast hosted by Mike Mills, Hardbody Harper from Wildcat Sports and Entertainment, and the mentally irregular Doc Turner. This podcast is a mix of your topics and thoughts in the world of pro wrestling, along with interviews and discussions with current independent stars and your favorite stars from the past. And now, here's your host, Mike Mills.
All right, everybody, thanks for checking out Booking the Territory's Pro Wrestling Podcast YouTube channel. And this week's guest, which is Cowboy Johnny Mantell from the World Class Championship Wrestling Days in the Sportatorium of Dallas. You probably have heard Cowboy Johnny Mantell on a couple of podcasts as of recently. Hopefully, you may have heard him on ours, Booking the Territory. But there's a quite more popular professional wrestling podcaster who is retired, who actually had Cowboy Johnny Mantell on recently as well, and he is Stone Cold Steve Austin. So we actually had on Cowboy Johnny Mantell back on May the 11th of 2016 on the show, and it's out there on our normal RSS feed for our Booking the Territory Pro Wrestling Podcast, which you can find anywhere you get your podcast from. So hey, please subscribe to our show if you can. Just search Booking the Territory and it will come up in whatever podcast app you use. If you listen on iTunes, Stitcher, please throw us out a 5-star review. We'd greatly appreciate it. But look, I'm not going to hold you guys for long. I want to jump right into my discussion with Cowboy Johnny Mantell, talking about the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, talking about a number of topics from the old days of the world of professional wrestling and the territories that he came through. Johnny Mantell's got a ton of professional wrestling experience. Great guy, great discussion. Really appreciated him giving his time to come on the show. It was a pleasure. I just got to say that if he's listening to this now. Hey, and if you can, we are on Twitter at BTT_podcast. Follow us there, like us there, whatever you want to call it. And look us up on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Booking the Territory. If you click the Shop Now button, you can get your very own Booking the Territory podcast tee. That's all I got. Let's jump right into my discussion with former World Class Championship Wrestling star Cowboy Johnny Mantell. Had a busy day today?
Had a busy day, man. Got people in the museum right now running around.
I hear you. That's a good thing, though. You want that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good thing.
So, hey, thank you again for doing this. And like I said, I probably owe Rod a lot because he's constantly hooking me up with guests. So, thank you.
Rod's one of the good guys, man.
Oh, I've known him close to 20 years, and yes, he's I think the world of him. One of the there's not enough superlatives that I can describe how good of a dude he is. But yeah, he told me give you a call. So I just wanted to talk about the Hall of Fame and everything that you got going on with it. And I guess first, if we can start with when I was reading on the site on your Facebook page. The first thing that comes to mind when I read it is, to talk about the history of professional wrestling, but it's the only, at least at this point in time, that I know of, brick and mortar building that is an actual professional wrestling Hall of Fame. Like, it's physical, it's there. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're the only brick and mortar Hall of Fame in the world for professional wrestling, just for professional wrestling. Now, the Amateur Hall of Fame in Iowa has a room in it, and they started inducting pros into their little wing of their Hall of Fame here a few years ago. And I met those kids up in Las Vegas at the Cauliflower Alley Club, and they basically said to me that they were just trying to help draw some people to their inductions every year, because with the amateur wrestling right now, and there's a lot of issues you and I can spend all day talking about it, but amateur wrestling right now is really hurting themselves because they have a rule book, and it says in the rule book how you're supposed to wrestle, but really and truly, the referees and the athletes and the coaches don't teach kids to do that. Right now, we're stalling more on the mat than we are being aggressive. And in amateur wrestling, you should get rewarded for being aggressive. And so to me, they're hurting themselves. But I mean, that's a whole nother story. This Hall of Fame is the only really true Hall of Fame for professional wrestling and we're not affiliated with any one organization where, there's lots of these little indie companies now starting up that have a Hall of Fame and all these different things, but we're not affiliated with any one group. We advertise everybody that's in the wrestling game. We have posters and pictures and information about all these different little indie groups that run around the country, and we're trying to tell that complete story. So it's we have a voting system in place where there's a voting committee that sets the ballot, and then a set of voters that vote. So you're being elected into this Hall of Fame by your peers, historians, and a couple AP writers. So it's done much like football or baseball or basketball Hall of Fames, where it's a legitimate, there's a legitimate case why somebody was elected to this Hall of Fame. And, every day on my Facebook or on the website for the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, I get questions. Well, how come this guy isn't in, or how come that guy isn't in? And a lot of people don't realize that back in the territory day, a star in your one area may have been the only place he ever was a star in. Now I'm not saying that takes away from his star ability, and it doesn't take away from his possible future election into the Hall of Fame. But right now, in our 15th year of inductions, we're still playing a little catch up, getting some of the legends of the sport in this Hall of Fame. And it takes, it takes a process to get elected. And by saying that, I'm just going to say to you that, there are a couple shortcomings that we're concerned about in the ballot formation and the way it's done. And the new board here in Texas is going to address that. And I'll give you one of my top concerns, and I've mentioned it to the group. I've mentioned it to them in New York for many years. This is our 15th induction, and we still don't have a referee in the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
To me, that's a shortcoming. That's something we have to address. So I'm sure that this induction class 2015 was done under the guidance and direction of the board of directors in New York.
Mm-hmm.
The class that will be inducted in 2017 will be under the induction or in the leadership and guidance of the board of directors from Texas. So you're going to see a little different process and way it's done. Nothing major, we're not going to cheapen the journey into the Hall of Fame, but we're going to make sure that we're honoring everybody that we need to honor to make this the Cooperstown or Canton for professional wrestling. And that's what Wichita Falls has to become.
Yeah, I didn't know that there was no referee in at this point. And well, I can think of a few off the top of my head without even really doing much legwork and research that I know.
Oh, there's
like James Beard pops into my mind immediately because
and he's a modern day referee. But let me just tell you, there's Joe Iguchi from Japan, or Red Shoes Dugan from Los Angeles, Ronnie West. There's a group of them that we could talk about for 10 hours. There's a group of referees out there that were as important as the ring as the guys that were in it. And we have to make sure we're honoring them.
That makes a lot of sense, and that makes sense what you said too about the current class's inductee list is voted on by I guess we'll call it the prior administration that was handling things before you took hold and started the move to Wichita Falls. I want to go there for a second too, just so people know where you are located, because I did mention it on my show the last couple of weeks that the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame is located in Wichita Falls. I did not give the exact address or the phone number at that time. So I have it in front of me, but if you want to, feel free to go ahead and plug that right now.
I'll let you read the address and phone numbers because I'm back here in the back office where it's quiet to talk to you. But the pwhf.org is our website, and you can get all information off that website. It'll tell you about the banquet coming up, the autograph line. I think they're just getting ready to put about the wrestling show we're going to have on Friday night here in Wichita Falls. And the city of Wichita Falls, about 2 years ago, the board of directors in New York asked me to try to help them find a better spot than we were in New York for this Hall of Fame to be in. And they were they'd really like to be someplace in the middle of the country where it'd be accessible to everybody to come see. And in that journey, you know, my wife and I, Kay, we traveled to a lot of different cities and talked to a lot of different EDC groups and chamber of commerces and city councils. And in our journey, we just kept coming back to Wichita Falls because they wanted something here as a tourist attraction that was going to draw people to their city, and that was one thing they were sort of lacking here in town. I mean, they do have a couple museums, but nothing sort of a worldwide attraction. And so we just kept coming back here. They kept saying, we're going to help you this way, and we're going to do this. And the television stations here in town, they have their own NBC, ABC, CBS, and Fox stations. We're not fighting with the Dallas Cowboys or the Oklahoma Thunder or any real professional sports going on here in town. They do have an arena football team, and they do have a minor league hockey team here in town, but there was just still fighting for time. And because of all that, this just kept looking like more like home. And then sort of an ironic thing happened about a month and a day before we made the announcement of moving here to Wichita Falls. A young man here in Wichita Falls started a website named The History of Professional Wrestling in Wichita Falls, and he started researching the history of wrestling right here in this city. And let me just tell you, man, that the history of wrestling here in Wichita Falls is deep and rich. Gorgeous George wrestled here. Right now, either 16 or 17 times they found. Gotch, Fez, Killer Kowalski, Stu Hart. It's like a list of superstars that have wrestled here. The Fabulous Moolah, Cora Combs. I mean, the list goes on. I believe he was in today and told me that so far in researching, either 98 or 99 of the Hall of Famers that are in this Hall of Fame had wrestled at least one match here in Wichita Falls.
Wow.
So that tells you the history here in this town of wrestling. And back in the day, the building that we were in, this building was one of the largest banks in the country, and it was really the bank that was in between Denver and Dallas-Fort Worth, where everybody in the oil boom back in the day, this was a happening spot. And after the tornado that came through town, it did not affect this building any, but tore up a lot of Wichita Falls. And then the oil crash in the early 80s, the downtown area sort of really took a real sharp, knockout punch to the chin, and a lot of downtown sort of dried up. And now the city, realizing what a great investment they have in this downtown part of Wichita Falls, is trying to bring it back and revitalize it. And we're the anchor team of that. We're the Hall of Fame here, and the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame Museum is the anchor of this downtown area and its revitalization. And we're holding up our end. We're bringing people in from all over the world and all over the state to see this thing. I know WrestleMania week, we got open for WrestleMania week, and I believe the numbers was 8 different countries and 27 different states came through our first week here. So
Not bad at all.
Yeah, so it's encouraging, man. And we're really excited to be open and to be part of the community here. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We have teamed up with the North Texas Rehab and the North Texas Food Bank. Next year will be a drop-off for coats and heaters in the wintertime. And we want to give back as much as we want people to come in and see what we have. And you're going to be pleasantly surprised. I hear it every day from fans that come through the halls here that say, man, it brought back memories as a kid, or watching wrestling with my grandfather, or there's so many smiles I see leaving this building that it just is really a humbling experience to be part of it. And I'm have been truly blessed, not only in this business, but to have met Tony Villano and the board of directors in New York, who really gave birth to this Hall of Fame and taught it how to crawl and got it walking really fast. And they knew, their vision knew that it had to be someplace else to learn how to run and learn how to sprint and get around the track. And that's our goal here. Again, our goal here in Wichita Falls is to make this the Cooperstown or Canton for professional wrestling. And I honestly believe that can be done.
Well, you definitely named some names that, I grew up watching the territories. But when you name a guy like Gotch, and you talk about the history of all the legends, and I mean legends from way back in the day, not even from the I'm thinking 70s time frame. You're mentioning people who have man, that's really really some classic stuff. And it's interesting that you said that about how the location was figured out, and then that he did the research and found all of those old, I don't call them old, but legendary wrestlers from that time that came through, wrestled in Wichita Falls. I remember when I first heard that it was moving to Wichita Falls, and I saw the announcement. An assumption on my part was, wow, Dallas was a hotbed at one point, and is that why? And not that Wichita Falls is in Dallas. To anybody who's listening, because it's a little bit of a ways. It's not too far, but I mean,
about an
it's a
hour.
little drive.
From DFW Airport, it's about an hour and 50 minutes.
Yeah,
on a 4-lane highway doing 75 miles an hour.
There you go. So it's not too far.
No.
It's definitely a driving distance if you're in DFW. But I remember thinking, oh man, Dallas was a hotbed. I mean, you know that. I mean, I've seen you on countless documentaries related to world class and what that was. So I thought that was part of why. But it's interesting to know that necessarily wasn't the whole backstory of why the Hall of Fame landed in Wichita Falls and all the good things that are going to happen, especially as a nonprofit. And
I went to Dallas, Fort Worth, went to Arlington, and looked and visited with people, but square footage is so valuable that it was hard to find a location for a nonprofit that they wanted to give us a closet or a little office, and we're in 7,500 square feet right now, and I would think sometime this summer we're going to move up to the next floor of another 7,500 square feet, and there's 2 floors above me that we can have with an elevator and steps, and so we're in a great location. And again, the city itself, the Chamber of Commerce and Cynthia Laney at Downtown Proud are so involved in making sure that this can become what it needs to become, that it just seemed like the right spot. A buddy of mine keeps telling me, he said, you just, at the right time, you aligned all the stars and made everything happen the right way, and it's just the right place at the right time. And I think that's really a true statement. I think right now we are in the right place at the right time. We have found a home for this hall, and we have found a community that wants to help support it and make it what it needs to be. And the guys around the country, the wrestlers themselves, have been so gracious. We've been getting outfits about every other day. We get a package in the mail from somebody sending their outfit, their boots, their tights, their ring jacket, some pictures, whatever it may be from their careers. Every other day we're getting a box in here. So, I mean, the collection is growing daily. Everything that started this Hall of Fame through today is either in here on loan from a family member or from the wrestler themselves, or it's been donated to the hall. And, you get to come see it down here, man. You're going to walk through and your jaw's going to drop, and you're going to come back and say, wow. And
I believe it.
The only thing I'm really hurting on right now, and I'll say it on your show today, is that I'm running out of full body mannequins to put outfits on, and so I've been searching the world over and on the internet trying to find some of these companies that would maybe like to donate some full body mannequins to the Hall of Fame here, and we'd be more than happy to put their logo or their seal or their name on the mannequins so that everybody knew where they came from, so we can continue showing the stuff that's coming in every day.
So everybody that just heard that, they are John is in need of full body mannequins. If you are willing to donate them, just uh, I'm thinking off the top of my head. Email the show, bookingtheterritory@gmail.com, where you always send your emails to for the discussion points that we talk about each week, and I'll make sure that he gets that message about your mannequins if you can donate. Because it sounds funny, but it's real because you need to put the gear on something, right? It
Absolutely.
doesn't look the same when it's sitting in a case.
Yeah, I'm getting I'm getting full body robes. I'm getting full body outfits with leg tights and upper body tights. And if you don't have a full body mannequin, they just don't look right. And and when I say that to people, I need men and women. I'm getting women's outfits daily, and that's how this thing's going to continue to grow, is by the generosity of the people in this business that want to keep the history and the legacy of this business alive. And I tell people all the time, it's a nonprofit. It's run by an unpaid set of board of directors, and my dog in this fight, my effort every day when I get out of bed and drive to Wichita Falls to come up here and open this shop up and let people come in, my dog in this fight is that I want my great grandkids to be able to come and view this hall and know what their pawpaw, maybe if they never even get to meet me, know what their pawpaw did for a living, and the guys he did it with, and some of those stories and some of those things throughout the years. And I know for a fact right now that there's a picture out here of Rod and I together in the ring, and I want my great-great-grandkids to come in and know that was one of my friends I was in the ring with, and that's the importance of what we're doing here. So it drives me to work on it every day. It drives me to use this smartphone that they got me for my birthday, even though all my friends out there know a smartphone and me sort of an oxymoron. It's sort of the oil and water.
I hear you.
It drives me every day to do what we're doing. And again, the brains of the outfit, my wife Kay and I are so proud and so humbled to be a part of it.
I told you when we spoke earlier in the week and we weren't recording that, I have an 11-year-old who is a WWE fan, and he's slowly starting to watch Ring of Honor because it's on in the area. However, he does not understand, like when a legend, quote unquote, comes back and is on Raw, and I light up because like that's the era that I remember. He doesn't grasp the history prior to, just a few years ago. And I'm like, you just don't understand. The territories were magical. It's hard to explain to someone who wasn't around. And I say all that to say, when I think of the territories, and I say this on my show weekly whenever we're talking about Raw or TNA or, Ring of Honor, I always say, and this is what the Hall is doing, it's bringing back the memories of those days, and maybe through the Hall and maybe through some of the older videos that are out there, people that weren't fans then can appreciate what there was back then. Because I can argue all the time and say I grew up watching Mid-South and World Class, and those times were magical. You can't explain to someone who didn't see it, but hopefully they can see it in the passion that you guys have with the Hall of Fame and what you're trying to do to help relive or, display it to the world that there was a history. And this is not knocking WWE. I'm just saying there was a history prior to this current era that we're in professional wrestling. There was a history to it, and that's what needs to be said and told.
Yeah, if you're a baseball fan and you don't know who Babe Ruth is, you're really shortcoming. You're really shorting yourself by not figuring out who that is. If you're a big football fan and you don't know who Bart Starr or Roman Gabriel or some of those kind of guys are from way back when,
right,
you're shortcoming yourself. So the same thing here. If you think an old guy's John Cena, you're not really giving yourself the true advantage of knowing this sport and understanding this sport. And again, I say it all the time, I was so blessed to come through this business during the era I did. I saw a little bit of the old and a lot of the new, and but in my career, I got to wrestle Lou Thesz and Gene Kaninsky,
wow,
Harley Race and Ric Flair.
Wow.
So, having that having that experience. I mean, and as an 18-year-old kid on my first trip to Japan, my first night in Japan, I'm wrestling with Tiger Jet Singh against Antonio Inoki and Tatsumi Fujinami. And
18 years old.
And I'm 18, man, and so of course I start the match. Tiger's the big star over there, so I start the match, and Fuji and I do a couple real cute things, and he tags in Inoki. And of course everybody wants me to go over and tag Tiger, but Tiger says, no, you take care of it. So I stay in the ring, and Inoki and I do a little thing, and when we got done doing this little spot in the ring, I sort of slid myself back into the turnbuckle, and I went to Tiger Jet Singh. I said, "Did you see that, man? That was the guy that fought Muhammad Ali. I just gave him a hip toss." And he said, "You need to get back out there and kick his blankety blank butt." And he used better words than that, but I'm not going to use them on your show today. But as an 18-year-old kid,
say what you want. It's fine.
As an 18-year-old kid, I was starstruck being in the ring with the guy that fought Muhammad Ali. So, again, it's I was so blessed, man. I tell people this all the time. I was so blessed in this business. I got to travel the world on the wrestling dollar. And that's one of the things I really feel for the independent world today, because so many of these guys are spending their own money and traveling all over the world and trying to get to the next level. And Vince is only going to keep about 50 or 60 people employed wrestling. I mean, that's going to be it. It's not going to be the couple thousand that made a living at this back in the 60s and 70s and early 80s. It's not going to be that anymore. Yet, I hope through the education that we can give, and that's one of the things we really want to do with the museum part here, is we want to tell a story. We want to tell a history story so people can learn. I hope that someday maybe you'll see a little territory here and there pop back up where guys can get an opportunity to wrestle 6 or 7 nights a week and really hone their craft. Bruce Hart and I talk about this all the time, that some days I bet Vince is really mad at himself for shutting down all the territories, because he really has no longer has a minor league team that's training guys what to do. He's got his NXT, but by the time they get them, they've already been through the circuit, and most of these guys that are pro wrestlers today that aren't working for Vince, what do they work? 8, 10 matches a month, maybe. Where I had 3 or 4 years of my career, I wrestled 350 plus matches a year. That makes a difference.
You nailed it, Johnny. Rod and I, when Rod was on the show, probably at some point last year, he and I had a long discussion about that. He said, you know something, Mike? He said, you didn't have the benefit of, you got to work the indies, but you didn't have the benefit, and you missed it by about 10 years or 15 years, where you could have owned your craft, and you could have worked, 7 days a week, twice on Sunday. He's like, you would have learned so much more. He's like, all you could do by the time you came around was work maybe 8 times a month. He said, and he said the exact same thing that you just said. This is why I'm bringing it up. He said, Vince, that's gone because Vince, killed the territories, and he did say they're reaping what they sowed now in a way because of that, where the indie guys just don't, like 8 times a month versus 30 times in a month. I mean, you do the math and compile that over a year and 2 years and 3 years. It's an enormous amount of matches that the young guys just can't get now, and they lose that experience over that time frame. I think Rod had told me one time, related to what you just said, he's like, when a guy nowadays says he's got 2 years of experience, he's like, I got that same 2 years of experience. I want to say he said in like 4 months.
Yeah.
Because it was so much more.
And what happens is I know when I first started, my first summer in the business, I went back to Leroy McGurk and Bill Watts in Mid-South, and I wrestled there that entire summer. And even though I wrestled with the Assassins and the Medics a lot, sometimes you would go a week and not wrestle with the same person at all. And lots of times you never saw that person until you got to the ring and the referee was giving instructions. So by saying that, that education you got by working with different people every night and having to know how to, and this is my analogy that I always use. The wrestling business is sort of like a glass of water. And most glasses will hold 8 ounces of water.
Mm-hmm.
But every glass is shaped a little different. Yet that water, that same 8 ounces, will fit in 100 different shaped glasses that hold 8 ounces of water. Well, this wrestling business is a lot like that glass and that water, is you have to learn how to work with everybody, and you have to learn how to fit in with everybody in the ring to get that match over so that people enjoyed it and had a great time. And the only way to do that is to pour yourself into 100 different glasses that hold the same amount of water and see how it works and how it fits. And some nights, some crowds, no matter what you do with an arm drag, they're not going to like it. Some nights, no matter what you do with an arm drag, the people are going to love it. You have to learn that feeling. You have to learn that feel in the ring. And the only way you're going to get to do it, you can't do it in a closed off room with nobody else in there but you and some guys working out. You can't do it watching TV. You can't do it reading a book. You have to go out and feel it. You have to be able to go to the ring with somebody that's a general that tells you every step along the way what to do and how to do it so you can learn that system. And I think that's one of the real shortcomings of today, even though they have some great athletes today, some good-looking kids that, God, I wish I was young enough to wrestle with. I'd love to work with a few of these guys in WWE, but I think they've missed that little piece of this business that's so important. And I think that's why in today's world you see the ratings of Vince has been going down and down, and you see these problems that they're having with their product. And I think it's because we've missed, or they've missed a little bit. Now, by saying that again, I'm going to say it out loud and real good that I'm proud of those guys making the money they're making today, because I never had that opportunity.
Yeah.
But it's not what I did, and it's not the way we did it back when.
Yeah, it's almost a different game than what it was back then. Just the way they play it. Yeah, that's a really good analogy with the glass of water. I've never heard that one before. Listening to you though, I swear it's like listening to Rod and all the discussions he's had with me about just the same thing with the experience and feeling the crowd. And I can remember him telling me at one point, he's like, how can you plan all this out in the back? He's like, what if you get out there and the crowd craps on it and they're sitting down and they're not even chanting boring, they're just sitting down. He said, you got to be able to react to that. So you got this all planned out and you're going to do this and this and this. Well, if they're not reacting to it, you need to be able to feel that. You need to be able to react to it. It's not a movie script. It's more of a reaction to what they want or versus what they don't want as well. And so it's interesting you say that, man. I hear that oftentimes and I've heard that from you. I've heard that from James. Heard it from Rod. One Man Gang has said that when he's been on. Everybody who was around from those days that you worked definitely say the same thing.
Well, it's like a dance, and if you're doing a waltz and the music's hip hop, it's a little difficult. It's a little difficult to do. It's about timing. It's about the feel of the crowd and what they're getting into. And if you're doing something and they're into it, it's easy to continue doing that. If you're out there and all of a sudden you forgot everything you talked about in the back and you can't remember nothing, and boy, all of a sudden the place starts stinking. And
right.
It's just that, and I see that all the time. I mean, I had a young man. There's a young man that comes by and donates his time here at the hall and helps us hang pictures and do stuff. And he's been training for a little bit over a year, and now he's starting to work a little bit for this company a little ways south of Wichita Falls. He had a match the other night down there, and he come back after his match, and I said, well, how'd it go? And he said, oh, my God, it was terrible. And I said, well, how come? And he said, well, one of the guys in the ring, he was in a tag match, and one guy in the ring had never nobody knew him at all, just knew that he'd been trained by somebody but didn't know anything about him. The other guy was green, and the other guy, as soon as the bell rung, forgot everything they'd talked about. So now you got two green guys, a guy that nobody knows, and another guy that are all out there like a deer in headlights and doesn't know what or how or when or anything to cover it up. And now if you don't have a quality referee in the ring, now you're really screwed, because now there's 5 of you out there running in circles confused about what's going on. And that's what happens. And again, in my day when I wrestled, that first summer in the business down there with Bill Watts and Leroy McGurk and Grizzly Smith and Buck Robley and all those guys, they never put you into a position where you were going to fail. They always had you in a position where you could be successful.
Yeah.
And I think lots of times in today's world, a lot of the promoters today just slap names together, and they don't take into consideration what that outcome may be if they just adjusted their card a little bit so that everybody had, maybe somebody with some experience and maybe a few matches with somebody that doesn't, but there's somebody in there that can carry them and make sure it's right. And that's just part of the process, and that's part of the process that's missing today.
Yeah, that makes sense. I remember Rod at one point saying back in the early, he was remembering his early days. You were young, they throw you in there with someone experienced. It wasn't like they would throw in 2 green guys to get in there and tangle. That's how, because you learned, you would work with somebody more experienced, and that's how you learn your trade and your craft. So interested, man. That's some good stuff. Hey, Johnny, I wanted to make sure I'd mentioned, I don't know if I said this already. So the 15th annual induction is May 20th and 21st, correct?
Yes, it's the 20th and 21st. The 20th on Friday night, there'll be a wrestling show in town, and it'll be an old-style wrestling show with some of the best young talent from around the country. We're excited about that show going to take place on Friday night. And then on Saturday, we'll have a trade show that'll go on all day at the Impact Center. And then also we'll have an autograph line for all the inductees and Hall of Famers in town, where the hall sells 100 tickets to it, because with guys like Butcher Vachon and some of these older guys coming, we don't want to sit them there for too long. So we limit it to 100 tickets, and that's one of our fundraisers for the weekend for the hall. And I believe there's about 20 or 25 of those tickets left right now for the 21st. And then our induction on Saturday night's a seated induction where you get fed a meal, and then you get to hear the guys that will be here live to be inducted. You'll get to hear their induction speech and sit there and be part of the honoring system, that how we honor them. So it's a 2-day event this year. We knew that with the move of the museum and everything else going on, we didn't want to add a bunch to it. But next year, we're already thinking that it'll be a 3 or 4 day process. The city's wanting to do a golf tournament. The college, Midwestern State University, would like to do something on their campus one day. The Air Force Base, Shepherd Air Force Base, would like for the inductees to come out and get a tour of the base, and maybe even have a couple of them go up in one of their jets. And so there's a lot of things in the works for next year. This first year, I just knew I had to get the museum open and get this induction done, so we didn't add a lot to it.
Oh, you got to start somewhere. So that makes a lot of sense. And hey, it builds upon things. I mean, things start small or smaller, and if you can, if there's room for growth and it's demanded, like you said, you keep growing it. I was looking at some of the names. I'm looking at the website right now, pwhf.org. So go there if you want any information. Again, that's pwhf.org. Go to the website, Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame website, and you can find. But you've got It looks like some different eras, like Joe Pazandak, Earl McCready, the Blackjacks, Mulligan and Lanza, Gene Okerlund, Hans Smith, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Lalani Kai, Peter Maivia, Sergeant Slaughter, and of course everyone knows who Stone Cold Steve Austin is. Man, it's a nice class if I'm reading that off correctly. Hopefully I didn't miss anyone.
Absolutely. Joe Pazendak, his son and 3 grandsons are going to come in and honor him.
Okay.
Autumn Maivia, the Rock's mom, will be here to honor her father.
Right.
Greg the Hammer Valentine, Lalani Kai, and Mean Gene Okerlund right now are all confirmed to be here that weekend. We're still working on a couple of those other names, trying to set up scheduling and stuff to have them in here. The one disappointing thing from this year is Sergeant Slaughter has been booked on a military deal for the last year that weekend, so he will not be able to come this year to pick up his ring and hat. But he did tell me to call his agent and make sure that he would be off the 3rd weekend next year in May, so he can come get his Hall of Fame ring. So we're going to get him inducted into the Hall, but it'll be next year before we get Sarge into Wichita Falls.
Okay, that's still a very good class.
Absolutely. And the other names that are coming, Stan Hansen, Terry Funk, gorgeous Gary Young, Eric Emery, Bill Irwin, Terry Garvin Sims is coming in, Beauty and the Beast. David Manning is going to be our MC, the referee from the World Class Days is going to be our MC, the Master of Ceremonies for the induction night. Butcher Vachon will be here.
Yeah.
Lenny Denton, the grappler, will be here in town that week. We've got a great group of the wrestlers coming in to be part of this induction and to meet and greet with the fans and the people of the Wichita Falls and the North Texas area, and we're really happy with the group that's coming in. And there'll be another announcement of people coming in on May 1st, and I really believe when that announcement's made, there'll be no more tickets.
Well, that's a good cliffhanger. You're gonna have to keep me posted. That way, I can make sure I plug who that is. I'll make sure, like I told you, I am definitely going to not only for the 20th and 21st, but I am going to each week I will plug the Hall of Fame because I think it's important. I mean, my show is run by myself, but 2 other guys who, we grew up watching the Territory, so we called it Booking the Territory. And part of that is because we long for those days, but you honor even before the Territory days. And I will continue to plug the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame because I think it's important, and it's not a knock on the WWE Hall of Fame, but you are an actual brick and mortar building. You are celebrating not just one organization, but all of the sport of professional wrestling, because I still call it a sport. I know people call it sports entertainment, but to me, it'll always be a sport. You can't tell me it's not athletic. The things that the guys do out there. So that's amazing. I will make sure I keep myself abreast of who that announcement will be on May 1st. This will air after May 1st, so I will be able to announce it on the second half of my show that week that I do, where we discuss like Raw and the other promotions that are going on. But I see you're doing some really good things, John, and I'm looking forward to it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm looking at the website right now for people who do want to visit. You're in Wichita Falls. It's at the Big Blue Building, 712 8th Street, Suite 100, in Wichita Falls, Texas 76301. Admission is $3 per person if you're between 6 and 65, and $2 per person if you're military or over 65. And kids are welcome based on what I'm reading here.
Absolutely, and a lot of people tell me that's too cheap, but let me just tell you, when I started in this sport, it was a family-oriented business. We wanted everybody there, and I wanted, during these tough times, I wanted a family of 5 or 6 to be able to come on a $20 bill so they didn't take anything off their food table or their car payment or their electric bill. I wanted it affordable for everybody to come. And what we're seeing now is there's a lot of people, since we've been open, have been here 3 or 4 or 5 times, and they're not worried about paying that $3 every time they come in, but it gives them another chance to read another poster or read another article we have on the wall, or as we're getting these other displays up and showing them, they get to see something new every time they come in. I wasn't worried about getting it all at once. I want people to come and enjoy this hall, and a lot of the people are buying T-shirts or hats or a coffee mug or something when they leave. So, we're a nonprofit, but we're not trying to rape everybody's wallet either. We want you to come and enjoy this. And again, one of my biggest joys is seeing people smile when they leave here because they saw something that they remember as a kid and they watched it with their grandmother or grandfather. I had a couple come in today, and they said their grandmother, who was a really educated woman and everything, she would literally go to the matches and stand up and tell the wrestlers that this is why you're getting beat, because you're a no good dirty dog, and that's what you deserve. And they were smiling the whole time they were telling me that story, and that's the cool part for me, is to see that in here every day with people coming into the hall. We also have we have a kids area. It's not completely done yet, but we have probably over 1,000 different these figurines like they do of all the wrestlers today, these playables, these little dolls that they make. And we have an amateur wrestling dummy in there. It's got an amateur pad on the floor, and kids can go in there and roll around and hook the dummy and do anything they'd like to do in that room. So we really tried to make it kid active too, where it's very kid friendly. So if people come with their children, they come in and find something for everybody to enjoy.
That's good. That's good. And you're right. That's extremely affordable. You can't do much nowadays for $3 a person. I mean, you can, if you got a family of 4, everybody gets in for $12. I don't know if anywhere else has an entry admission of that cost. So that's a good deal you got there. I mean, I'm stoked. I'm glad. Like I said, I will be more than happy to plug your Hall of Fame, or the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, over and over again each and every week that I do a show. I'll definitely give it a plug on my show and tell people that if they are listening, they need to visit, because it's a great opportunity to see the entire history, as you say, of professional wrestling.
Absolutely, man. And I know you started to say it, then you pulled back, and I get this asked all the time, who owns it? And I tell people all the time, it's really not owned by anybody. It's managed by a board of directors. But if you had to put a label on who owns it, it's the fans of the wrestling world and the men and women that have been inducted into this hall. That's who really owns this building right now. And myself and the rest of the board members, we're just proud and honored to be the people that are running the steering wheel and the gas pedal and making this thing cruise on down the road. And for everybody out there, this is probably one of the best little cities you'll ever get to come see. The water park opens the weekend of our induction here in town. They have a 4-year university. They have a great police department. And we are in downtown Wichita Falls in the iconic Big Blue building, what they call the Big Blue building, which if you're coming in either on the turnpike from Oklahoma City or on 287 coming south from Amarillo or north from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, when you look off into the city horizon and look into downtown and see all the high-rises, there's no doubt where we're at, because our building's blue and everything else is a different color. And there's just no disguising it. That's where we're at. We're easy to find. There's plenty of parking. There's a 3-story covered parking lot, plus all the parking out on the street. And there'll always be somebody with a smile there welcoming you at the door. And anytime I walk around, and if they have any questions, I try to answer the questions about back in the day. And again, man, we're just humbled to be a part of it and proud to be on your show today. And if there's anything we can do for you here in Wichita Falls, as far as your show or your journey in this business, all you got to do is call us, man, and we'll try to answer every question we can.
I definitely appreciate that. I definitely appreciate it. Well, I'm about to hit the stop on the recording, Johnny, and if you could hang tight real quick, maybe I just want to chat with you for 1 minute after. But you got anything else you want to plug before we wrap this thing up and I hit the stop button?
Man, just real quick, I want to thank you for having me on today so we can talk about the Hall. I want to thank the fans of wrestling out there for all their years of loyal, true support for this sport. I want to thank my buddy Rod Price for this opportunity to be on your show today. We've worked together, we've tagged together, we've talked together, and he's one of my favorite guys out there that I've had an opportunity to work with. And I'd also like to thank the city of Wichita Falls for everything they're doing to make this what it needs to be.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. So we appreciate your time, Johnny. Thank you very much for coming on. And I wish you nothing but the best with it. I'm looking forward to see it grow and continue to succeed and have the people pile in there and all that good stuff. Because one thing about professional wrestling, from the time I was a kid, and I'm saying something that many of my listeners feel and many of the people around the world feel that are pro wrestling fans. It's once it's in your blood, it's like you always kind of have a love for it. So
absolutely,
whether you're
man.
a fan or whether you're in the business, you have a love for it.
Absolutely, man. I'm 58. This thing's made me feel like I'm in my 40s, staying busy and talking to people about it. And the last thing I can tell you is pwhf.org is the place to go, get all our information. And if you're a wrestling fan, you love the sport, you like something about it, you need to check out our information about our banquet and come see us in the month of May and have some fun in Wichita Falls on a weekend. I guarantee you won't be disappointed.
All right, y'all. Thanks for checking out my discussion with Cowboy John Mantell. I really appreciate y'all checking out the episode on our YouTube channel. And like I said, if you enjoyed this discussion, we've got tons of other discussions up. Like we've got the One Man Gang, Sam Houston. I've got Ring of Honor's Donovan Dijak, the Beer City Bruiser, all up in discussions. Hey, and we've also done shows with Eric Young, current NXT star, as I put this out there on June the 11th of 2016. So appreciate everybody who has checked this out and is tuned into it. Hopefully you will subscribe to our audio version that we do and we drop on every Tuesday, soon to be every Thursday night, reviewing Raw and SmackDown and all that good stuff from the week. But thanks again. This is your host Mike, and I appreciate you checking out this week's YouTube channel episode. We'll catch you next time.